Right, so we learnt over the weekend that the Republic of Ireland have been pitted against co-hosts Australia, Canada and Nigeria in Group B at the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup. We're joined by Irish international footballer and Donegal's own Amber Barret. Good morning to you, Amber. Thanks so much for joining us. Great to have you on the programme.
Thank you very much, Greg.
Is it fully sunk in that we're talking about who you're going to be playing in this tournament next summer? I presume it has it? But still, I mean, it was such a remarkable journey to the finals.
Yeah, I think now that we know, we're in the draw. The draw's been made. We know who the opening game is. We know who the opposition are for the group stage. I think, collectively we talked about it over the weekend. I think this is the first time it's actually began to feel a little bit real, and the excitement has already started.
So, I mean, opening up against the co-hosts Australia, then it's the Olympic champions Canada, and finish it off with the highest-ranked African team in Nigeria. But I suppose you wouldn't want it too easy either. I mean, that's what you qualify for these tournaments for, isn't it? To go in against the best in big games.
Yeah, I think when initially when the draw was being made, looking at the first, especially pot 1 and pot 2. Like the caliber of teams in both were top. So I don't think any group has got an easy run of it. And to be honest with you, I don't think any of us really cared. I think the fact that we have our foot in the door, we were in the draw, we were in the group stage. I think that's, after that there, we don't really care about the rest.
You have a win over Ireland in a friendly in Dublin. Friendly, completely different. Of course, this is a competitive match. It's the World Cup, and you're going to have a very passionate Australian team. And I'm sure there's plenty of Irish over in Australia will be scrambling to get tickets as well. But this is a different experience altogether, isn't it? And we'll have to be prepared for as such.
Yeah, I think so. I think the turnaround that we had coming into that Australia game, I think we were on the back of 7 or 8 defeats, I think, in a row, and probably the lowest we'd been in a long time in terms of such poor results. And I think the Australia game then it kind of instigated the turnaround that we've had over the last year and a half, 2 years. And I think going in now to the World Cup, playing them again, obviously in Australia, you're talking about arguably a 40,000 capacity stadium will be sold out, and I'm just hoping that there'll be half of it will be filled with Irish, because there's plenty of them down there.
Yeah, exactly. They have to get their wallets out and start booking some tickets. I think last time out it's a defeat to Canada. Never played Nigeria before. But as a professional, does form matter when you're heading into such a big tournament like this? I mean, is it in the back of your head? What went before, I wonder.
Yeah, to be honest with you, sometimes yes, but also I think that we have a long little bit of time between now and the next, until the World Cup actually begins, and we're going to more than likely play a lot of friendlies in between that. Obviously there's no qualification games in between that, so I know with Vera previously, she's always spoke about how important it was to get to play against strong opposition to kind of build that little bit of confidence. And yes, there's a possibility you'll lose the game, but you're competing against the best all the time. And I think, as you said, that's exactly why you want to play in a World Cup. You want to play against the best players in the world.
Yeah, and we are, sometimes we look at the opposition, not just in this scenario, but often, Ireland are the emerging team. Ireland are the improving team. Ireland are arguably the team with the momentum. So, I hope somewhere in Canada or Nigeria or Australia, they're having a conversation and saying, right, we've got a really tough draw here. There will be, but we're the team with the momentum, you could argue.
Yeah, I think 100%. I definitely know that when we were put into pot 3, I don't think there was any team in the other groups that would have wanted Ireland to go into their group. I think what we've done over the last year and a half with the campaign, I don't think went unnoticed, and I definitely think going in now to the World Cup, as we said before, we've nothing to lose now. We've got in. I say nobody would have given us a chance of getting out of the group that we got out of anyway. So as you said, we're going to make it really difficult for every team that we play against, and I definitely think everybody will be keeping an eye on us.
How big is the preparation? You mentioned there's going to be friendlies. That's going to be, because I think us as spectators maybe just don't see friendlies like yous do in terms of preparation, because some teams might have a handy group, right, and they will see that as their preparation to hit top form, come the knockout stages, for example. Ireland, we are going to have really good preparation because we are in a final almost on day one.
Yeah, 100%. I think that every friendly that we've played, there's been something in it that we've taken out, whether it's been, looking at something defensively that we want to improve in, attacking wise, and it's just as well, it gives other players an opportunity. So maybe there's players that haven't played that much over the last campaign, And when we play friendlies, Vera's always very strong about it, that she wants to expose players to that type of high pressure, because she's not just taking 11 players to World Cup and these girls are going to play every game. Like, it's going to be a squad, and I think everybody needs to be ready for that. And that comes from the first friendly that we played to the last one that we played before the World Cup starts.
Yeah, indeed. And you genuinely fancy our chances of getting through this group? You can see a pathway out of it?
Yeah, I think, like, again, nobody could give us a chance to come out of Sweden with a point. Nobody would give us a chance to beat Finland home and away. And I think that's the whole thing. I think when Sky came on board, they had that quote with us, out believe. And I think, we're going into the World Cup, we have our foot in the door, and I don't see why we would be aspiring to do anything except get out of the group. Yes, it'll be very difficult, and chances are definitely against us, but as we've shown before, anything's possible.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to focus or how much you focus on the gender side of things, but it's an amazing time for women's sport at the moment. We've seen the amazing success of our boxers over the last wee while. Katie Taylor's back out again in the next week or two to defend her undefeated titles, not undefeated, her unified titles. And then, we have this to look forward to. And we're watching a bit of the European soccer and also the English women's higher leagues.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real momentum there. It's not talking about something where it has to come from. It's there now, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to the exposure that it's got over the last few years. I think you look at the English league. They've went on Sky Sports, they've went on BT, they've went on BBC. They have the FA Player now, where every game is available to watch. Then the crowd attendance go up, and then I think the best thing for it was the Euros. I think the Euro campaign in England in the summer was a huge success. Unfortunately, it was the English that did come out on top, but the fact that we were able to sit at home in the evening and have so many games of football exposed to us was brilliant. And like, it wasn't just people who had an interest in women's football; it was everybody was checking in to see it because it was there and it was available. And I think as soon as you see it, it carries through, and the momentum carries through with it. And as you said, I think for women's sport in general, not just soccer, it's just going to keep getting better and better.
Yeah, and there's a few stubborn, high-profile commentators, not in football, but I'm thinking about boxing. It's a standalone sport now. It does not need to be put in the context of the male versions of the games any longer. Even though some still try to, it doesn't have to anymore. It's these are, and I think that particularly the European Championship showed that it doesn't need comparison.
No, I don't think so. And I think that was always that was the difference between it. They were comparing in England, like they were comparing the women's league there to the Premier League, and yet nobody realizes that for 50 years women's football was banned in the UK. And it's like, how can you compare something that was for 50 years? There was nothing being done about it. There was no progress being made. And I think that's, it's a little bit of naivety from so many people. And I think, as you said, it's definitely a small number of people who are trying to, still put us in the same bracket. But, the ones involved with it and the people who have followed it realize that, we are standing on our own 2 feet at the minute.
Exactly. The people that know it know that. Finally, too, I often wondered, and we see, with the men's World Cup upcoming shortly, some high profile players missing out, picking up injuries, and you feel for them in club games and what have you. Is that on your mind, Amber, when you're playing? I mean, you're building up to this. You've worked so hard to get to it. You and the squad, and then of course you have league games and what have you to take part in. The worst case scenario will be a nightmare. You can't think about that though, can you? Would be an injury, sorry. I think I said injury, but anyway, that'd be the worst nightmare. You can't think about it, can you?
No, I don't think so, because regardless if there was a World Cup or not, injuries can happen at any time. They can, unfortunately, it's part and parcel of the sport. Of course, you want to keep yourself as fit as possible, but as you said, you've seen the top players in the world with the best medical care available still pick up injuries. So I don't think they're always avoidable, but you just have to hope that something's a wee bit of luck's on your side. Yeah,
fingers crossed. Now, July seems like a lifetime away, but we'll blink and we'll be just in the mouth of the World Cup. It's so exciting. Thanks so much for joining us this morning and giving your reaction to that draw. It's really appreciated, Amber.
No bother, Greg.
Take care of yourself. Thanks very much indeed. Amber Barret there, Irish international, Donegal footballer, of course. A footballer from Donegal, a soccer player, and her reaction to that World Cup draw. It is Australia on July 20th. Australia are co-hosts for New Zealand. We have a win over them, but of course it's a completely different scenario. Canada, I think last time out we went down 2-1. They're Olympic champions, and they would be seen as the best team in that group, I'm sure. And then Nigeria, they're the highest ranked African team. all games are going to be brilliant, aren't they? And we just hope they get enough to get through to the knockout stages. Wouldn't it be a great way to spend the summer?